Welcome to the Own It Powercast, the place to be when you get serious about making big changes and accelerating growth in your life and in your relationships. Finally create the life you've always wanted, living life on your own terms. Learn how to take your fear and turn it into powerful choices that will create sustained change. Now your host, Mary Baker.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Own It Powercast, the place to come to get what you need to move yourself forward. Hey, it's Mary Baker and welcome to episode 302, Spotting Subtle Red Flags, the behaviors that slowly wear you down. Well, welcome to a brand new month, which we're going to be getting into everything about relationships, healthy ones, unhealthy ones, and the impacts they can have on our lives, which can be big ones. We're going to talk about communication, behaviors, and looking at what changes you might want to make in your environments and maybe within yourself. Before we get started, make sure you check out the courses in the show notes. I'm getting some great feedback in terms of how they're helping people really take a moment and look at themselves and work on healthy boundaries and do some soul searching, and even better, start to make some great changes that they are seeing in their life. And that's what really matters, is that you can see the evidence of the work that you are doing. That is what will motivate you to keep going, to keep getting healthier, and make your life better than it ever was before. So make sure you check them out. If you have any questions on anything, please reach out. I am right here. Now, when most of us think about unhealthy or toxic relationships, we usually picture the big stuff like the yelling, the lying, the blatant manipulation, and we've talked about that here on the show. But the truth is, most of the time, it doesn't even start there. Because if it did, you would not be hanging out with that person. Like, do the math. If they started out like that, you would have walked away a long time ago or distanced yourself. It's the quiet things, it's the little digs, the guilt trips, and the way someone refuses to take responsibility. Those are the things that can slowly wear you down. So today I want to talk about how to notice them and why they matter. Now, this is not the first time I've brought up red flags, but I just think they're so important to keep talking about. So to keep it at the front for you, keep learning, keep recognizing. So why do subtle red flags matter? Well, I think subtle red flags are really dangerous because they're so easy to rationalize. You tell yourself things like, oh, that's just how they are, or they didn't really mean it that way, or they were having a bad day. And yeah, maybe that's true once in a while. But here's the thing, if it becomes a pattern, when it's more consistent, it's not so innocent anymore. Think of it like water dripping on a stone. One drop doesn't do much, but day after day, year after year, it carves away the surface. And that's what these small behaviors do to your confidence and your peace of mind over time. Now, I want to stop here and talk about how some people seem to notice red flags right away while others don't. And often the difference comes down to what you grew up around. If you were surrounded by dismissive comments, some blame shifting, or even subtle guilt tripping in your family, your brain files those behaviors under normal. So when you encounter them in adult relationships, they don't set off alarm bells. In fact, on a deep level, they feel kind of familiar. You might even confuse them with love or connection because that's how love looked to you as a child. And on top of that, if you were made to doubt yourself early on, where you were given the message either overtly or covertly that you were too sensitive or you're always overreacting or making a big deal about stuff, you very well could have learned to second guess your own instincts. So now, instead of recognizing a red flag, you might immediately wonder, is it me? Am I making too big of a deal of this? Am I being impatient? Am I not extending enough grace? And that self-doubt makes it so much easier to brush off behavior that truly isn't okay. Which is why part of the healing I think, is learning to trust your perceptions again, even if it feels really uncomfortable at first. So let's talk about what are some of the common subtle red flags. Let's walk through some of the ones I see the most often with clients, and maybe you'll recognize a few. The first one, which happens so quickly you don't even notice, is dismissive comments. You share how you feel, what you're upset about, what you're worried about, what you're angry about, and they say, "Oh, come on, you're overreacting. It's not that big of a deal." Well, guess what? That's a subtle way of saying your feelings don't matter. You should not trust your thoughts. And I would dare say your needs don't matter, right? Or your boundaries, because all of those are tied together, and that's not okay. We're not supposed to be dismissed, nor should we dismiss others. So if you find yourself doing some of that, take a moment and say, what was going on with me? AKA, what was my fear? I didn't want them to be upset about the thing. I wanted them to like my new friend. I wanted them to be excited about the vacation or the dinner we're having at this restaurant right now. So that was about you, and you got to figure out, what are the fears driving this for me? Right? It's all about that outcome. I don't want them to be upset, and I probably don't want them to be upset with me. So when someone is dismissing you, that is all about them and their own insecurity. The other one, which is more obvious, is guilt trips. So instead of being direct, they pull the, "Oh, after all I've done for you," or, "If you really cared, you would, ... And suddenly you're the bad guy just for having a need or saying no. Isn't that crazy? Now, I'm not talking about if you really committed to something important, like showing up to take them to surgery or something like that. I'm talking about it's not something that you promised to do, perhaps. You're not being irresponsible. You're not being wishy-washy. You're just saying, "Hey, I can't help you this weekend. I'm so sorry. I just don't have time." We're not supposed to put our stuff on other people. We're not supposed to be driven by guilt. Guilt is only healthy when we are feeling appropriate guilt because we blew it, we forgot something, we broke something, we messed something up, we said the wrong thing. Okay. But that guilt isn't supposed to come from other people. That should come from within ourselves. The other one is never taking responsibility. Now, this one can be really slippery and harder to catch. But somehow, no matter what's happening with this person, it's always someone else's fault. And you can kind of tell this if you listen to how someone will describe a circumstance, a situation, and you don't hear them say, "Yeah, and that's really on me," or "part of that's on me," or I know I screwed that up," or "I know I really struggle with being defensive," or, right? Instead, they'll say, "Oh, they made me do it," or "You made me do it," or "That's just who I am," or "I can't believe they're upset with me." Right? The "I can't believe they're upset with me" phrase shifts your focus into poor them, the victim stance, right? As opposed to maybe that person is upset with them for a really good reason. Healthier would have been, "I'm a little freaked out. They're upset with me. It's really hard to accept. Either I don't know why they're upset with me. I know I need to talk to them, or I have a good idea of why they're upset, and it makes sense that they are." Taking responsibility, in my world, is everything, hence the name of this podcast, Own It. There cannot and there should not be trust and emotional safety and true friendship and partnership between two people if each person, both people, are not taking individual responsibility for self. Another one is hot and cold behavior. Like, you never know what you're going to get. What kind of mood, what kind of treatment of you. Like, one minute they're warm and the next minute they're distant or critical. And you don't know what happened in between. Like, I'm really adamant with my clients, like, please don't make people guess how you got from A to B. look at them and say, no, you're not crazy. I was in a great mood till I just got this phone call and now I'm devastated and just take it from there. It makes you take ownership of your process, right? And how you are coming across to other people. Because otherwise it just creates eggshells on the floor and it's not okay. And it makes the other person feel really unsafe if we're not letting them know. They don't know what's going on. Another one is boundary pushback. And I don't mean the obvious stuff like, I'm not going to respect your no. It's the real subtle stuff. Like, let's say you say, yeah, I really can't do that tomorrow. They tease you for being too busy. You work too much. You need a break or you're too sensitive. And so they keep pushing and prodding. And over time, this can really chip away at your ability to trust your own boundaries. We've talked about this before on the show where people can come across really nice and well-meaning in terms of, oh, you work too much, just come out with us just for this one evening or whatever. And that's not okay. It really should be, we would love to have you. We're worried about you working too much. Be nice to see you take a break. We'd love to spend some fun time with you, but it's your choice. Okay, so you got to be able to trust your own boundaries. We need to be able to accept each other's boundaries and not try to question them. And this includes if they keep bringing it up to you as if you didn't adamantly say no 5 minutes ago or yesterday. Nothing magically changed. But they may act as if it should have. Are you sure you don't want to go? Oh, come on. That kind of thing. That's not okay. That's them trying to manipulate you. Because they are struggling. Here comes the detachment. What's about them is they're struggling. They can't accept your no, and that is about them. And that leads us to subtle undermining, like sarcasm, backhanded compliments, little digs, things like, oh, wow, you actually did that? I didn't think you could. Or it's amazing you even pulled this off. It's the vibe. There's a million different examples of that. All you need to know is if it felt really yucky, it probably was. And part of your work here is to trust your gut, trust your heart. If it didn't feel good, it didn't feel good. And then finally, emotional withholding. So silent treatment, shutting down when they're upset, refusing to communicate with you as a way to punish you. And that's not okay. That's not healthy. It's not good for them either. When we cannot process out loud with someone what's going on in a safe way, we don't move through it. We don't heal. We don't grow. So why do we put up with this stuff? Well, usually because we learn to. Again, if you grew up in a home where dismissal, blame, or guilt tripping were normal, your brain goes, this feels familiar. This must be okay. This must be love. Or maybe you just hate conflict, so you'd rather just brush it off than say something. And then finally, sometimes we can really get caught up in Delulu, where we get caught up in someone's potential, what we see who they could be on their good days, and we hold them to that, even if that's a false self that they're putting out there. And then, of course, there's self-doubt. Maybe it's me. Maybe I'm being too sensitive. Maybe I'm just having a bad day. And that's why it's so important to pay attention to, in the first nanosecond, how did that feel? How did that feel? What they said, how they said it, and the timing of when they said it. And start paying attention to that. I'm not asking you to act on it right away. I just want you to gather data. Especially because if you're starting to work on this, you want to see patterns. If these are close relationships, if these are people that you're married to, related to, you have to work next to, then first you want to see if it's a pattern, see what's going on, see how you feel, figure out what your boundaries are, and just build some self-trust. Because the thing is, ignoring it is never a good idea. There's a huge impact over time. Because even if you try to ignore it, your body won't. You're going to start to notice low-level anxiety, like you're walking on eggshells. You might feel drained after spending time with him and can't pinpoint why. And you're going to start second guessing yourself. They're going to be up in your head. And here's the awful part. Over time, you just really stop trusting yourself. You stop trusting your feelings, and that makes it even harder to set boundaries. Because if you're constantly second guessing what you feel or notice, you're not going to feel solid enough to say no. You're not going to feel strong enough to call something out or have the courage to walk away if need be. Our inner compass usually works very well, but when it has been worn down by dismissal or manipulation, you start outsourcing your truth to other people without even realizing it, because you're waiting for them to validate your feelings, confirm your perceptions, or tell you what's okay. And that leaves you wide open to even more boundary violations, because the very tool you need to protect yourself, which is trusting your own gut, has been compromised. And rebuilding that self-trust is the foundation for healthier boundaries and healthier relationships moving forward. And that's what I do the most with my coaching clients, is help them reconnect to who they really are, get the toxic away from them, build a healthier relationship with themselves first, and then help them create healthier relationships in their life. Okay, so how do you start spotting them or return to it? Maybe you've done this in the past and you fell off. How do you start to catch these subtle signs? Well, first, you got to slow down and notice. And I know that sounds obvious, but a lot of times we're not being present. Just whenever you can throughout the day, no matter who you're around, start noticing. Tell your subconscious, I want to start noticing this stuff, and it will point it out to you. Try to write down, if you can, what was said or done that didn't sit right with you. I have a lot of clients bring that to session, and it's really great because then we can walk through that and identify the unhealthy stuff and validate why my client is feeling so crappy. Also, when you see it on paper, patterns can start to show up. The second thing I want you to do is start really tapping in and trusting your body. Do you feel tight in your chest? Is your stomach clenching? Is your jaw tense when you're around them? Are you shallow breathing? Do you feel foggy or distracted or confused? Because remember, our body often sees the truth before our brains do. And third, catch yourself rationalizing. That's a big one. When you hear yourself saying, oh, it's not that bad, I want you to pause for a minute. Just take a moment. Would you accept that same behavior from a coworker or a neighbor? Probably not. And think about what the fears are if you don't rationalize. Like, what is that going to mean? Oh, crap. I just took this new job and now I'm working for a jerk. That sucks. Job market isn't what it used to be. Like, you go down that trail and you understand why the stakes feel so high. And the higher the stakes, the more we're going to rationalize, unfortunately, because there's a hell of a lot more to lose. It's not pretty. It's going to mean blowing things up. It could mean a lot of losses. So own the rationalization and dig underneath to that vulnerable stuff, the real fears. Maybe being frustrated with yourself for allowing this to happen. There's a lot of really genuine stuff under there that most people would feel, not just you. And so here's a way to take that a step further. I want you to do a quick self-trust check-in after your interactions. You're going to say, how do I feel in my body right now? Do I feel lighter, heavier, tense, or calm? And what emotion is strongest for me? This is really key. Is there relief? Is there joy? Is there guilt? Is there anxiety? Is there peace? Am I ruminating? Am I redoing that conversation up my head? Because we're not supposed to be doing that, guys. And I bet you'll find you ruminate when you walked away from some kind of manipulation or shitty behavior. And then finally, can I finish the sentence? something felt off when, or I noticed I felt good when, like something felt off when they made that sarcastic comment, or they questioned, or something felt good when they really validated that what I felt wasn't crazy. And then I want you to validate yourself by saying, my feelings are real and they matter. My feelings are real and they matter, even if you're not sure yet whether you're right, quote unquote, about the other person. Honoring your emotional reaction rebuilds the link between your gut and your mind. You can figure out all the cognitive stuff later. I just want you to reconnect first. Finally, practice one small boundary next time. Graciously say no, change the subject, or take space. Then reflect afterwards. Did I feel more grounded after I did that? If I had the courage to say, that comment was kind of hurtful to me. Over time, these small practices train you to stop dismissing your signals and to start trusting them, which I think is the foundation of stronger boundaries and healthier relationships. And it is a process, and it does not happen overnight. You work at it, you chip away at it slowly but surely, not perfectly. Some days are better than others. But I want you to know that every time you at least acknowledge on the inside what was not okay and why it wasn't okay and why you're not crazy for feeling kind of yucky, that's the game changer right there. Eventually, you will become more courageous. Once you start noticing these subtle red flags, the question then becomes, what do you do about them? And again, this is a process, and I want you to be patient with yourself. And you can't do this work alone. You need someone in your corner to support you. It's one of the things I offer my clients is I am here to support you. You're not walking through this alone. So if you feel safe, begin by having small, honest conversations. You don't need this huge confrontation to take care of yourself. It's actually better not to. It's better just to say, I really felt a little dismissed when you said that. Or that comment didn't sit right with me. And then, here it comes. I want you to pay close attention to their response. Because people who make comments like that often can't hear truth very well. Unless they're working on themselves. And then they'll say, yeah, I'm really sorry, you're right. But notice, do they get defensive? Do they minimize it? Do they turn it back on you? Or do they take a moment, try to listen, and actually care about how you feel? Because their reaction tells you a lot about the health of the relationship. And then the next step is to start setting firmer boundaries. That might mean saying no without over-explaining, changing the subject when the conversation turns manipulative, or limiting just how much time you spend with them, sadly. Sometimes we have to do that. Boundaries don't always have to be announced with a speech. Sometimes they're very quiet choices you make about access to your energy and your heart. Again, it's also crucial to talk this stuff out with safe people you trust. When you've been gaslit or dismissed in the past, it's going to be really hard to believe your own perceptions. And so having a friend, a coach, a coaching group, or a therapist can reality check what you're experiencing. And that really helps you rebuild trust in yourself. You need that mirroring. I talk about it all the time because it is so profound. And finally, there's the grief work that comes up where we have to be eventually willing to accept what's true, even if it's painful. Sometimes, despite your best efforts, their pattern doesn't change. And that's when you have to decide if the healthiest choice is creating distance, maybe limiting contact, or letting go altogether. And I know that's never easy, but staying in a dynamic that chips away your own self-worth is far harder in the long run. And if you're working on yourself, you're not going to be able to stay there. Eventually, that's going to come to the fore. Just remember, your goal is not to change the other person. You can't anyway. Your goal is simply to honor yourself, your feelings, and your boundaries. And then decide what level of access, if any, that person gets to your life. Okay, so that was a lot. Some of you may have already been working on this, really chipping away at it. Others, you may just be coming to terms with this wherever you are. Be proud of yourself for working at this. This takes a lot of courage, and you deserve to be treated well. Okay. So here are 3 questions I want to leave you with. And I just want you to ask yourself this week. The first one is, do I find myself brushing off comments or behaviors that actually hurt or sting or make me want to pull away? The second, how do I usually feel after being around this person? Good, bad, lighter, heavier, anxious, peaceful? And finally, am I noticing patterns of blame or guilt tripping or dismissal? Because if any of those are a yes, you're probably dealing with subtle red flags. So not all unhealthy relationships scream toxicity. Some whisper it. In fact, a lot of them whisper it, I think. And those whispers, those little red flags, matter just as much as the big ones. Over the years, I, unfortunately, have gotten to see the damage that this does to people's self-esteem and their physical health. You can't control someone else's behavior, but you can decide how much access they get to your heart, your time, and your energy. And remember, many of the most damaging relationships chip away at us quietly through subtle behaviors we often brush off or explain away. And if you're really ready to start working on this and need some support, check out the show notes. The links are there. You can do a power hour with me just to identify what's going on and see if you need some help. There's a free Healthy Boundaries guide. Even if you've already worked on boundaries, it can be a good refresher. And especially the Find Your Voice course, which has the group coaching component, which is what we talked about today, where we need safe people around us, especially more than one person, to help us process any toxicity in our life and what to do with that and how to rebuild that trust with ourselves. Thank you for hanging out with me today. If you know anyone who can benefit from hearing this, pass the episode along. It is not selfish to trust your feelings or to want to say no or have a boundary. In fact, it's far more loving. Okay, so pay it forward, keep focusing on you, and I'll see you next time.
We hope you took away some useful insights and tools you can begin using right away. If you did, please leave a positive review and share on your social media. Because could you imagine if everyone in your life really got it together? Remember, own it now, so you can really own it later.